This episode is brought to you by freedadcourse.com. You are always one conversation away from changing your life, and the power of hello is something that I subscribe to every single day, and I'm always saying hello to new people everywhere I go. Increasing your opportunity, increasing your connection, and getting access to the solutions to the problems that you are facing, whether you're on active duty or just beginning your veteran transition or even transitioning out for 20 years. On the other side of hello are the solutions that you're looking for. Again, head on over to freedadcourse.com. Get your 5-episode audio course to create more connection, create more friendships, and get back to living the life that you're trying to design.
As a dad, we're leaders. We're here to set the example for the kids. That we're the heads of our tribes, and kids' minds are like sponges, and they're going to mirror everything that they see. So if you are on the phone all day and you're not paying attention to your family, that's the message that you are sending, that it's normal to be like that. If you're on the couch watching TV all day or just on the video games all day, that's the message that you're sending, and that's what they're going to pick up, and that's what they're going to think is normal. So I think as dads, we need to set the example, and the example for our kids to follow, right? Same as you would with your Marines, soldiers, airmen, whoever it might be. So with that, take your kids outside, take them camping, go out and build something, and, spend some time teaching them how to read or change a tire or whatever, because, building life skills and showing them the way, I guess that's how you lead your family, right? You know the way, you show the way, and you go the way.
Dory 1, this is Fire Team Delta. Dad's coming home. Welcome to the Military Veteran Dad Podcast, where it is our mission to bring every dad home. I am your host, Ben Killoy. I'm a United States Marine veteran, husband, and a father. We will bring authentic conversations to inspire action in your life so we can close the gap between the dad you are today and the dad you want to be tomorrow. This is the Military Veteran Dad Podcast.
Welcome back to Military Veteran Dad. This is episode 117. And if you are a longtime listener, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because we just passed 30,000 downloads since January 1st, 2019. That seems absolutely insane for me to think that there are 30,000 listens out there of something that I said. If there is a thought that even I had 6 years ago that I would be in this position where people are listening to the things that I had to say about a given topic, I would have told you you're lying. But that has come true, and it's because of the support for this podcast and its mission and its value that it's helping dads out there. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you and for this support. And if there's ever anything I can do, please reach out. Ben@militaryveterandad.com. I'm an open book. I will answer any questions. I'll even dedicate future episodes. If you got a really good Fatherhood Friday question, drop it in the email, and I will go ahead and make a special episode dedicated just for you and that topic. So today's episode is with Victor de la Flor. He's an active duty U.S. Marine, currently holding the rank of Chief Warrant Officer 3. He's got 18 years of service, still on active duty. He did support of Iraq and Iraq Freedom, been married to his amazing wife for 15 years, and they have 3 kids, a 16-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old son, and a 6-year-old son. Outside the Marine Corps, he's also extremely ambitious. He is a small business owner that owns Undercover Clip, and there's going to be a website link in the show notes for this. This only works for Navy and Marine Corps uniforms, but this allows you to put this little clip inside your cover and allows you to put your sunglasses inside your cover while you're in uniform and store them so they don't get broken. And it was born out of him breaking a $200 pair of sunglasses. So if you're a Marine or a Navy, go check out that website and get one of your Undercover Clips. All around, he also has a dad blog called Eat Sleep Dad, where he's just serving as an online journal. He writes stories of adventure and life lessons as he experiences with his kids. He doesn't make any money from the blog. It's just a simple way for him to express what he's doing. And he also has a YouTube channel, Eat Sleep Dad. All of that is in the show notes as well. He grew up from just a humble beginning in New Jersey with very little, and it was almost a nearly daily discussion that he had at his home, where he was told that he needed to work so hard that he could live better than they did. And he took that to heart and that is what that discomfort that he created by going all in on that is what's paying off in the long run. And I'm super excited for what's going to happen for him when he's on the other side of transition. He's doing all the right things. And this episode, I know, is going to bring a few dads home. And if you love leadership, if you love last week's episode, 116, this episode is going to be right in the same category. I know you are going to love every minute of this episode. And just a quick disclaimer, the views represented in this episode represent Victor's views on different topics, not the United States Marine Corps. So now that I've got you all excited, let's dive into this episode with Victor de la Flor. Welcome to the podcast, Victor.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben.
You have been one of those guys, and we've both been window stalking each other, I feel like, for over a year on social media. And then you reached out to me and said, hey, let's do a podcast together. And I was like, yeah, I've been watching you. You've been watching me. Let's make it official here. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit of background and your family today.
Absolutely, man. So I'm in the Marine Corps. I'm currently serving, still on active duty. I'm currently a Chief Warrant Officer 3. I'm going on 18 years now, so pretty old guy out there. I'm currently working as a legal admin officer. So basically that consists of just assisting commands with keeping good order and discipline. It's not the most popular job in the Marine Corps, I'll tell you that, but
yeah, it doesn't
you do learn a lot.
Title to it.
Yeah, what's that?
It doesn't have a sexy ring to it.
It definitely does not, man. You know, it's but you know, you do learn a lot, and you know, you definitely meet a lot of good people. Let me see. I've deployed to Iraq back in about 2005, 2006 timeframe in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and had the chance to travel the world a little bit after that.
Where were some of the places that you went to after Iraq?
After Iraq, went over to Thailand, a little stint over in Italy. Where else did I go? I was over in Iwakuni for a little bit, Japan.
Were you with them?
No. I was just stationed out there. Just got orders out to Iwakuni. Japan was great. It was awesome out there. Got a chance to travel a little bit outside of there.
I did Okinawa for 3 years. It was where I called home.
Yeah, so I've been to Okinawa. I did the staff academy up there years ago. Good times out there. Yeah, we'll say that.
I was reminiscing about it last night on a podcast, and my dream would be able to figure out a way to get back to Okinawa, paid by the government to speak on base post-Corona world. Like that I would pinch myself being able to revisit all of my memories of like 3 years of my life was there.
Yeah.
And like, it would just be like, I can't even really describe what it would feel like, just kind of walking through my past in a very like future time frame, because it was 20 years ago almost, and just kind of reminiscing like, I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Were you up at Foster? Or
I was at Hanson.
Hanson. Okay. So same place where I did the staff academy up there, right outside Hanson, Kintown, and
all those places.
Yeah.
I was reminiscing with a friend about the bars off the like Gate 2. It's just
all that taco rice, huh?
Taco rice. Like we were debating why taco rice hasn't actually taken off in the United States. Like it's the most simplest idea, and no one's taken hold of it at all. Like Taco Bell marketing should be all over taco rice.
They should be, man. I think I had my fill on taco.
Even, like something should be like, just put rice, cheese, and taco meat together, and you'd make millions.
That's it. I don't know why it hasn't taken off. No, but I had a real good time in Okinawa, man. It was a lot of historical sites out there. We actually just did I was stationed in Hawaii before I came out to Southern California, and we did a little TAD trip out there. We stopped over in Wake Island for a refuel. That was
nice and interesting.
Oh, it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. It was we got to do a quick tour of the island. Got to stop by 98 Rock and check that out. Then we flew out to Okinawa. We got to do a little tour of all the sites out there.
Did you go to Hacksaw Ridge?
We did. Yeah, we did.
I went there as well. I never really connected all the history until I watched the movie, and I was like, whoa, I was there.
It is incredible, man. I think the movie kind of makes it a little bit more exaggerated, like I guess the side of the cliff. But I mean, it's still big, right? I mean, it's still amazing what happened out there. But it's just.
Did you get to Iwo Jima?
No, I've never been out there.
That was kind of like my gift out of the Marine Corps. I was EASing in August, and there was one. I'd missed all the opportunities prior to that, and our staff sergeant hooked us up to get a flight in like the June. So like 2 months leaving the island, I got to take a 1-day flight out there, and it was just an incredible way to end my 4-year service.
Oh man, I wish I would have had a chance to go out there. I know they were doing like morale flights out there, and I never got a chance to stop out there, but it's definitely on my list. I do have a little bottle of black sand.
I got
Somebody
two
brought me
big
back.
jugs of it, like 2 cereal jugs that I carried back. I have yet to really figure out a good use for them.
Yeah. But I mean, the memories are there, man. I mean, you got to go up to the top and check it all out. That's what matters.
Like
That's
it's
awesome.
it's a very surreal place for Marines and just in general for history and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to make it out there at some point in time, and I'm still. I mean, I only have two more years until I'm looking at retirement. So, 2 years to make it out there at some point.
But you're at that point where you know almost everybody that you need to know, probably. Like you probably know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy.
I know many guys who know many guys. Yes,
exactly. Like you're well connected enough after 18 years that I think I could probably figure out a way to get over there.
Yeah. No, I'll be able to jump on some kind of some flight out there.
Yeah, first you got to island hop your way to Okinawa, and then you got to time it just right for the seasons when
I will figure something out. We adapt and overcome. I'll figure something out.
Amen to that right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What brought you to the Marine Corps?
Well, I'll tell you, man. I grew up in Jersey and a little bit in Florida, Central Florida, and I just didn't like the position I was in. Right, I didn't like the area too much. After a while, it just got old. It was like a black hole. I just needed to get out. Right. I had a friend who joined the Marine Corps, and he stopped by the house at one point. And he was like, I guess I'm recruiting assistants, and he just was telling me about it. And I figured, this sounds pretty good. I'll be able to get out of here. Do something else. And I mean that was really what attracted me to it, man. It was just getting out of this black hole that was, Central Florida. There was absolutely nothing else going on. My friends were doing the same old thing. I was working at like McDonald's and then CC's Pizza and things like that. I'm like, there's got to be something different here.
After 18 years to reflect back on that memory, is there something that you were running from? Because I often find like people join the military to run from a feeling or to run from a situation that they don't feel comfortable anymore, or there's just something that they feel like this is a better opportunity and they just have to run from the feeling of what you're kind of feeling of the darkness. I'm wondering if there was anything that comes up when I ask it that way.
No, nothing that I was running from, I don't think. It was just more of I just needed a change of pace. I was not going to move back to New Jersey. I mean, there's a reason why I moved out of there, right? I just didn't want to stick around. I mean, everybody's doing the same thing all the time. It didn't change, from year to year. And I just needed a change of pace, man. And I figured the only way to get out of here is to make a drastic decision, a drastic choice, which is either move away myself or, somewhere to another state or, join the Marine Corps, which seemed like the better option because, they'll pay for me to move. They'll give me, meals. Yeah, exactly. They'll give me the meals I need. They'll give me college, all that stuff. I bought into all that stuff. So I just needed a change of pace, man.
So after 18 years, what do you think the Marine Corps has been teaching you?
Oh man, it's a little bit of everything, man. The leadership styles, definitely you take from the good and you take from the bad and make your own leadership style, right? I mean, we've heard that all throughout the years. It's taught me, how to deal with, I was really bad with procrastination back in the day. It taught me how to deal with that. Because of course you got to be 15 minutes early to 15 minutes early, back and back. So it taught me that, I think the biggest thing in the recent years that it's taught me is, and something I've always had issues with, was public speaking. That's the big takeaway, man, because the job that I have now requires me to get in front of folks about 3-4 times a week and do public speaking. And I was kind of forced into it. And I'm grateful for that, because if not, then I would have just stayed in my shell. Right. But I mean, aside from that, it's just, me taking classes in how to public speak, going to Toastmasters, things like that, not paid for by the government, but just to better myself as an individual for my job.
I love that, because that's the same kind of steps that I've taken. And I'm interested to see what your answer to this is. Yep. As you exercise your voice and your mind's ability to convert a thought to a story, is there like a overarching story that you find you're resonating deeper with as you learn to speak about it? Like your message you're making, like taking a lot of, like in speaking, a lot of it comes from taking your message and making it your message. Right.
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's an overarching story. I do. Well, I'll put it this way. A lot of when I speak to my Marines, I want to make sure that Um, I'll give you an example like this. I just had a talk with one of my Marines yesterday. She had an issue with she was exiting the Marine Corps. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know where her life would go because she had some issues prior to the Marine Corps. She just didn't want to get back into those issues.
She was running.
Right. So I guess my advice to her was, and usually my advice to any room of Marines that I'm talking to is, hey, look, don't look at the past. Look at the future. Find out what the Marine Corps has taught you, and move forward in that direction. Right. If the Marine Corps has taught you leadership, utilize that. The Marine Corps has taught you how to establish milestones and how to achieve goals. Use that to your advantage. Just don't dwell on the past, because that's what she was afraid of. Right. Is kind of going backwards, getting back into the habit of what she was doing and where she was living, how she was living. Right. And I mean, that's really the overarching story of anybody I talk to is, hey, look, how can you move forward? Instead of dwelling in the past. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
it does, and it actually gives me one that I always maybe you could take this and add it to your speech when you help Marines understand this. Is people always talk the transition out of the military, but to me, it's important to analyze the first transition because you were actually a human being before you joined the military.
Absolutely.
And you're getting ready to become another human being, and you're still going to be on the other side. And we don't often look at like our goals and ambitions and objectives when we joined, and then kind of reevaluating, did we meet those objectives? Are we going to redefine them? Are we a different person? Are we going in a different direction? And to me, it's a both of those. You got to first look at your first transition, and your transition out isn't your first transition. It's your second one. And it's not like it's the first time you thought about it like this. You already made one transition, and you had to come up with thoughts and patterns of belief to get in this military. So now
absolutely
reapply that on the way out.
Right. No, I completely agree, man.
Even just recognize the growth of the gap between the version of who you were. Like, you're not that same person.
Exactly. Right. So I know that when I leave the Marine Corps, I'm going to miss it. But as I move forward, it's a new chapter in life. Right. I just can't let the past affect me. Yeah.
I've been pulling out this idea, and I just had another conversation with another Marine, and when I gave him this word, he was kind of almost frustrated because he was, I think, about the same time, like 17, 18 years in the Marine Corps. He was a first sergeant, deals with a lot of Marine issues. And I told him, we were talking about self-leadership. And he's like, I've never considered self-leadership as a concept, as something to teach. So I'm interested. Before I gray up what I think self-leadership is, when I say self-leadership to you, what comes to mind?
Self-leadership. So what comes to mind is kind of, that saying, know yourself and seek self-improvement,
Ooh, I haven't heard that in a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a real thing, and that's something I always preach to my junior guys is, you have to know yourself first. Before you lead somebody. You have to know where you're coming from. You have to kind of teach yourself a little bit. And it's really just taking a step back and analyzing your life and where you're headed. Obviously with when you're leading somebody, you're not going to show them, you're behind per se, right? You're not going to show them the worst of you. You're going to show them the best of you. You have to stand back, analyze yourself, and make sure that you are giving the best to the people that you're trying to lead. So teaching yourself to be, I guess, a servant leader, right? Teaching yourself first and then leading from that aspect.
So I can't pin my finger on it, but know yourself first and always seek self-improvement. That's like in the Marine Corps lingo, right?
It is. Where
is it coming from? Like, I can't pinpoint like what part of my 4-year career did that get like burned in my head. Maybe it's something burned in boot camp, but I haven't like.
Now that you mentioned it, I can't point it out, but it's always been a thing. Because to me, it's
perfect. Like, it's even more ironic that this Marine that I was talking to didn't fully concept of self-leadership, but the way you just described that is the definition of self. Like, you know yourself, you find your own weaknesses, you learn to lead yourself in a proper way. People like that, they will follow you.
That's right. Exactly. And, you set the example for others to emulate. This is all like Marine Corps lingo, right?
Exactly. That's why I'm kind of like, my mind's blown.
It just makes sense.
Wow, we were talking about it, but yet we weren't. I never sunk in the entire 4 years that I was in. Like, this is what all this stuff that
Yes.
the leadership traits that JJ did, Ty Buckle, like all this stuff is
Right.
self-leadership. And the crazier part that I've realized on the other side in business, business leaders aren't followed because or considered great leaders because they have the best ideas. They're followed because of way they lead themselves. And in the
Absolutely.
military, you have the rank problem kind of gets in the way where people get authority whether they deserve it or not. And
Right.
whether you have good leadership or bad leadership, you still have to show respect. And I think maybe that kind of dilutes the vision of like, because in business, you can choose who you follow. If I don't like this, I go find a different job. In the military, you don't have that. So maybe that clouds our ability to look at and evaluate self-leadership properly. I don't know. Does anything come up with for you for that? When I
Yeah. Well, what I've always been taught was, you can respect you don't have to respect the person, but you have to respect the rank, right? In that aspect, you have to follow the orders, at least lawful orders, right? That's given to you at work if you're active in the military. But I mean, you have to respect the rank. You don't have to like the person you're working for. The way I growing up in the Marine Corps, I used to be, I guess what you call like a little bulldog, right? Back when I was like a sergeant, all that stuff.
Yeah, I can see you being a little fire pistol, like just like, hoorah, good to go, Gunny.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I would hold people accountable, and I would get counseled on these things, right? Like, hey, like you dial it back a little bit, And as time goes on, I kind of, your leadership style changes a little bit. I don't know if you recall, like in boot camp, you had, these the hard ass drill instructors, and then you had your senior drill instructor, right, who was like the one who would talk to you more and just kind of like encourage you to do better, like talk to you like more like a person, right? Over time, as I've developed in the Marine Corps, I've noticed that I've gone from this hard ass to almost I wouldn't say nurturing, but a more understanding individual. People come to me with their problems, and they actually respect that. You have to be able to be open to listen to people, because if not, they're not going to want to come to you. And that's what leadership is all about, man. You have to be open to listening to people. If not, then you're just losing them.
Did you did time in the drill field? I can't remember.
I know I did not. No.
I also want to point out for any military leaders listening is what you also talked about when someone comes to you is the same thing that you have to do as a dad. Your kids won't bring something to you as a problem unless you create the psychological safety that they can trust your reaction.
Absolutely.
Be something that's normal. If you've created this kind of like where you instantly like, how dare you bring this problem to me? Like either in fatherhood or in the military, people are not going to do that. And that's when you're going to get called on the weekend at 9:00 because of a domestic abuse issue, because you did not create psychological safety within your unit where people could trust to bring something up and elevate it. And then it just kind of comes out in really bad ways.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That same way I kind of raise my kids, right? It's like, hey, look, if I'm open to them, if I kind of establish this environment of, a responsive father, a person who will listen to you if you have an issue, rather than just come down and with a hammer every single time, they're going to want to communicate. That's it. I mean, I had a tough time years ago trying to kind of decipher that, right? Because it was, for me back in the day, it was all Marine Corps. And that's the way I would raise my kids, and I kind of had to take a step back, and I'm like, my kids are not my Marines, my kids are not the Marines I work with. I should not raise them this way. So really it's just, I had to make a change. I had to kind of sit back, and it took my wife to actually come forward and tell me about that. Like, hey, look, you might be a little rough on the kids, just dial it back a little bit. Okay. Got it. But yeah, and then after I started, dialing it back, they become more receptive. They started to communicate with me a little bit more, rather than just going to mom all the time. They, would come to me, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And, you encourage them to do that. You encourage them to tell you about their problems. I
always have a saying that says, be there for the small things, because then later in life, they'll bring the big things. They're testing you with, Daddy, there's this problem on the playground. And if you're not there to make that the most important thing in your day right now, they'll remember that subconsciously and like, yeah, he wasn't there earlier. Why would I bring him? Like, I think she's pregnant type of questions where you want them to bring that kind of shit to you. But if you didn't create that psychological safety, they're going to try to hide from it and figure it out on their own.
Yeah. And, a big thing I tell my kids too is, look, be honest with me. I'm not going to be, it's going to go worse for you if you lie. I don't care if you smash my car window by mistake. Be honest with me and I'll help you out.
Marine Corps wisdom always applies in parenting of like, you can bring whatever you want. And the first time when you're telling me the truth will always be where, okay, let's go ahead and try to fix it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm always receptive to that. Things that used to bug me back in the day no longer bug me. The kids will bring issues to me, problems to me, and, I'll help them out. I'm happy to do that because that's, I feel like that's what a father should do, right? A son, instead of being mad, I'm going to help you overcome this issue,
So I was just doing some math, and I don't think I know if I got this right, but I peg you to be a father when you probably were promoted to corporal or sergeant time frame.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
So take us back to that time because you're elevated into a time frame where you're leading Marines even more, and then you're humbly given this baby that you don't have a manual for. What was that time like for you?
That was it was a rough time for me, man. I'll be honest, because that I was in my early 20s. I still had like, the friends and party mindset. It was tough. It was tough, but my wife was there. She was very supportive. She kind of talked me through a few things like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that. A lot of times I wouldn't listen. I'm like, hey, I'm just going to go out with the boys, hang out at the bar or whatever. But those are rough times in my life, how my wife stuck around with me. I don't know. But yeah, it was, having to deal with, changing diapers and, just the whole thing of being a young person with a child. I couldn't imagine having a child when I was a teenager or something like that, like some of these other folks do. But yeah, it was a major transition.
What advice would you send out there for a dad at that same season now that you've kind of reflected your kids are older? And what advice did you need to hear way back then?
I had some talks with my dad when I was younger and, about, how to raise kids and all that stuff. Like, how did you deal with this, And, he's very, he doesn't talk too much, but, his words do mean something to me. So he's like, hey, man, you just got to be there. You just have to be in the moment with that, just as you get older, you will understand that everything else around you doesn't really matter because your family is number one, so all this, playing video games and not paying attention to your kid, which I've seen a ton of times, or just, going out and partying and stuff like that. Not, all that stuff is you're neglecting your family at that point. You come back, bring it back to number one. Nothing else really matters except for your family because they're the ones that are going to be there for you. Not your video games, not your friends. The second something goes wrong, your friends are out the door. Unless they're really close friends, but your family is just number one. They're the ones that are going to be there for you. So really think about that.
And also just think of your commitment in the Marine Corps is 4, 8, 16, 12, 20, whatever it may be.
That's right.
But your wife is the one to the end of your life.
That's right. If you have a good wife, she'll be there to the end of your life.
You didn't say I do, just like, I'm just going to hang on for a little bit. No, like whatever commitment you make, your wife, that commitment will last all of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you don't prioritize in the military, the worst part is it doesn't create a safe place to even let that thought get oxygen. Like the Marine Corps has the worst joke that if we wanted you to have a family, we would have issued you one.
That's right.
It's better. But I think that like the fact that still gets laughs out of Marines that are still on active duty, like that still means that there still isn't that safe place where family can be a priority yet.
Right. I'd say over the years it has grown, that the family aspect within the Marine Corps, because you cannot function and do your job properly if your family's not taken care of. Because even if you deploy and you're constantly thinking about is my family okay? Is my family okay? Now more than ever, are there more resources for, spouses or families and things like that. And I'm grateful for that too, even though, we don't really use all the resources, but I'm thankful that they're there, because a lot of times, people bring me issues like, hey, so what do I do, with this, with that? I'm like, have you talked to Navy Relief Society? Have you talked to the MFLAC? Have you talked to Military One Source? Whatever the case may be. So I'm grateful that those things are there for the service members, right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, man.
It does. We're just talking, so every question relates.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And so you have a son and a daughter, if I remember.
I do. I have 2 sons and a teen daughter. Yeah.
How old is your son?
So they're 10 and 6.
10 and 6.
10 and 6, yeah.
As you've brought sons into the world, what is it like raising kids that are boys? What have you learned about yourself as you raise them?
So I will tell you, raising a boy is probably easier than raising a girl. At least at this age, right? Because right now they just want to play around. I got a trampoline in the backyard. That's all they want to do. So I'm like, hey, I'm cool with that. Let's jump on the trampoline. Raising boys, it's easier. It's fun. I mean, you got like a little mini me with you. Just recently, last week, my 10-year-old, he came to me, and this was like a super proud dad moment for me. He's like, hey, Dad, I want to buy an iPad. Okay, well, I have an iPad. He sees me on the iPad because I draw a lot, on the iPad. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to get it? Because I'm not going to buy you an iPad. It's not your birthday. It's not Christmas. He's like, well, I want to earn it. I have, and he pulls out a sheet of paper and he's written down these goals. And I'm like, holy crap, you're 10 years old. You're coming to me with all this stuff. Like, he wrote down milestones.
That looks like a SMART goal.
Yeah.
He taught you that.
Yeah. And, these are things, and it really like clicked. I'm like, man, everything I've been showing you has really paid off. It's paying off. He came by, he's like, here's my end goal. And he drew like a little brainstorming thing, right? Little arrows. Here's how I'm going to start doing this. Here's how I'm going to start doing that. He's like, I want to mow lawns. And if I mow 50 lawns by summertime, I'll have $1,000 and I'll be able to buy my iPad. I'm like, well, that's really impressive, man. So he asked me if I can help him with that. I said, absolutely. Let's do it. We're actually starting this weekend. We got a couple of jobs lined up. So he's super excited. But, it was a super proud dad moment for me, because I'm like, man, this guy came up with this stuff all on his own. And everything that I've been showing this kid over the years it's really paying off. Like, he's actually listening. Something's
stuck in there. And it's like, oh, I wasn't just talking to a wall that felt like
exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, that was super cool for me to see, him just pulling out a little notepad and, writing all that stuff down. And, but, in talking to these boys, I mean, I understand the 6-year-old is really too young to understand a lot of the stuff. So we're just still molding him. Right. But even the 10-year-old, I'm like, hey, look, we got it in his head. I'm like, what do you want to do when you grow up? He's like, oh, I want to be an astronaut. All right, got it. Like, what do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go? He's like, I want to go to the Naval Academy. I'm like, wow, like, how'd you even find out about that? But he's been talking to my wife about it. And again, the super proud dad moment, right? He's just like, he's all about it. He's like, how do I get into the Naval Academy? How do I do this? And he's doing his research, So I'm hoping that that's the route he ends up going, right? Because then I guess college is paid for at that point.
Yeah, and the other part, like, just to use as a flashlight, is maybe you get lost, or whether you even question, like, is he just doing this because of me? Like, curiosity, your curiosity as a human is the breadcrumb to your purpose and passion. So as long as it's what he's curious about, and he's like naturally looking it up and doing it because, like, man, I really like learning about this.
Right.
Then he's always going to end up where he's supposed to be. It's if they're not curious, that's when you want to, like, is this really what you want to do? Or are you just kind of doing it because it feels right, or it's what dad kind of showed you or something? Yeah. But curiosity is that thing that you always want to lead with. That's what I lead with in my life. And I always describe him kind of drunk on curiosity, because I've learned a lot of random things because I just like learning about things. And I'll figure out a little bit about myself every time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that he actually approached me with that, and talking to my wife, and, I think she kind of got the bug in his head, and she was telling him all about it. But he's like, yeah, I really want to do it, and I'm like, well, are you doing it because I'm doing it? Because you don't have to be a Marine, or you don't have to go in the Navy. He's like, no, I think it'll be cool, blah, 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 and maybe I could be a pilot or something like that. And I'm like, all right, man, that sounds super cool. Whatever you want to do, I'll be there.
Pilot seems cooler, like just because NASA has their own fleet of regular
Right.
stuff, and like to me that would be even like it's safer, it's less probably bullshit to deal with. You got the politics of NASA, but I'm sure it's a lot less than the politics of the military.
No, but he's all about the whole space exploration. This kid is way smarter than I ever was at 10 years old. He'll come up and just give me like random facts on space and things like that. I'm like, where are you learning this stuff from? He asked me to help him start a website where he can just post like space facts. And I'm like, hey, let's do it, man. We'll start this website.
Has he looked at any of the podcasts for kids that are out there? Like Brains On is one that our kids always listen to. They just do a really good job of telling stories and teaching a bunch of random stuff to kids.
No, I haven't really looked into that, man. I mean, I guess I could like
feed his mind even more because it just kind of gives you the wider view of everything. And like the kids are absolutely addicted to listening to Brains On.
Yeah, no, I have to. What's it called? Brains On?
Brains On. But there's probably like, I would say when you start looking like kids podcasts, there's probably like 10 of them that are like really popular up there. But Brains On is the one that we do. There's one like every week and they pick a topic from questions asked by kids of like one just weirdly odd one. They came up with like, why is our poop brown? And it was an entire episode devoted to poop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was. I mean, they made it fun and they made it interesting for the kids and different things. But it was just like, or like, why do we think disgusting things are disgusting? Like, what makes it disgusting? They do a lot of interesting things like that.
Now that you mention those questions, now I kind of want to look into that because
I enjoy it. Like, it's not a bad thing to have in the car when we're going in a road trip. Like, I'll turn it on and then we listen to it. Like, it's a regular thing that we listen to now.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Brains On. I have to check that out.
Also, the one other thing that popped in my head is, have you ever checked out the Jocko Willink books for the Warrior Kid?
I got them all, man. I read them every night to the kids.
Yeah, because like that when you were talking about the lawn mowing, I was like, he's just like that kid where he wants to fix up his bike and
we're on like
chapter. The irony of those books
Yeah.
is we're just reading the third one, so he just came out with a new one with my oldest.
Yeah,
and this one is where there's a new kid in school and he's making the kid jealous of everything. And my daughter literally had a new girl come to school. Her name is Sophia. My daughter's name is Sophia. And she's making her jealous because she came in smarter. And I was like, that sounds like somewhere we read this story about like dealing with this envy feeling. And it was just crazy of how it like we can find relation to it in so many different stories that like, remember that? That's how the kid happened. And he was held accountable for his actions, not what the other guy did to him. And there's so much life being taught in those books.
We might be reading the same book then, because I read it to them every night. They actually come and get me. The 6-year-old, he's like, Dad, you got to read The Warrior Kid, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think we might be reading the same one, Mark and Danny Reinhardt.
Yep, Mark. Yep. I'm reading the first one to my 6-year-old son.
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter, we read the first two, and now we've just started the new third one that came out.
Yeah, excellent books, man. Back when we were in Hawaii, we used to do jujitsu out there, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So I think we're going to get into it again here, but I know they've been bugging about that too. Like, hey, Dad, let's do it. So I've been trying to kind of carve time into my schedule because my wife and I both work to get these kids out there and do jujitsu. Because I enjoyed it when I was out there in Hawaii. So I really wanted have them have the experience as well out here. So yeah, same thing like lawn mowing. And jujitsu. I guess they're following the same path as this kid.
Yeah, like it's crazy when you plant those little seeds, they start growing and how it all unfolds. And the crazier part when you start like thinking of all this stuff, like it doesn't take much for a kid to like start seeing the world differently. And entrepreneurship is such a great example that there's a lot of homeschoolers that I follow, and they use entrepreneurship to actually teach their kids what they need to know about school, but they use business to teach them. And I'm like, how primed is that child to go into the world to know that money is infinite and you can make it from nothing? And most people graduate the 12-year school system or the public system with this idea that a W-2 is the only way that I can get issued money. And how game-changing is it for a child to grow up with this idea that it can come from nothing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So though I definitely harp on good education, right? So that's something I tell my kids all the time. Look, people can take your money, people can take your time, people can take your work product, but people will not be able to take the knowledge you acquire, right? So that's something I always harp on with these kids. learn how to do something to the best of your ability and use that. Right. I mean, same thing with that podcast I had going. I learned so much over the course of all these years.
All those conversations they influence, and you never, no one's going to, even this, I mean, this is, I'm like up to episode 118, and like no one's going to take all that dad knowledge from me of all the
absolutely. I mean, you acquire all that. Nobody can take that from you, right? You learn a second language. Nobody's going to say, hey, you no longer know it. That's all implanted in your head, so.
And it changes how we see the world too. Like one conversation can change forever how the lens of the world people look through. And it's either limiting or it's infinite. And oftentimes it's just these stories we tell ourselves. And the Marine Corps is pretty good at kind of breaking these stories from you. Like you can be anybody in the Marine Corps. Right. And we kind of don't really realize that we could really be anybody when we take that uniform off. And we kind of just go back to Clark Kent. We were Superman, and this Clark Kent, we really don't know what the hell to do with ourselves.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. It's something I teach these kids. You can do anything you want. You as long as you learn about it, you take the time to learn about it, you can do anything you want. Every resource that you want, that you have, is out there, in online, in the library, whatever it might be. All the resources you need to learn a skill or learn about whatever you want is out there. The thing is taking step one to actually get off your butt and do it, and read about it, learn about it, right?
When I want to learn, you got to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nobody's going to do it for you. Like, hey, look, here's, this microchip, put it in your head. No, nobody's going to do that for you. Nobody's going to force you to the library, right? You got to do it for you. You got to want it. It took me many years to learn that, because I was just allowing myself to kind of go through the motions of life, in high school. I wasn't a good high school student. Even in the Marine Corps, I was like, I'm only going to do 4 years and just get out. And it wasn't until I had started getting good leadership, or starting talking to my leaders, and they started opening my eyes, like, hey, look, you can go really far in the Marine Corps. You just have to, put forth a little bit more effort. I'm like, okay, very well. I mean, that's where it all stemmed from, is, I got out of my shell. I started, reading more. I started, emulating the leaders I had. I started kind of trying to mirror the good stuff, in my life from leaders. And, it just started from there, man. And like, I would have never thought in my life, in the first 4 years of the Marine Corps, I would ever transition from enlisted to officer. That was not even a thing my first 4 years. Right. And I talked about it so much that my wife just told me one day, she's like, just shut up. And I'm like, what? She's like, just shut up and do it already. Just, if you're going to apply for warrant officer, just shut up and do it. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's the kick in the ass I need, right? And just do it. And, I tell the kids the same thing, just not shut up and do it, but, there's all this talk. How about we start putting things into action,
All good stuff. And the idea of just recognizing the willpower of your own life, like, that is a very simple idea, but man, in 2021, with the way the American culture is wired, there are so many people that wait for permission. You were even like an example, like you probably were like, man, I just wish someone would walk up to me and say like, hey, you could do it. And there was nobody except yourself that you needed to give permission to yourself for.
Right. So that's a big thing, I think, with especially with this upcoming generation, right? It's like, they're just kind of standing by, they're waiting. And, that's something I got with my daughter right now. She's, teenager, really rebellious. Just, I'm the bad guy these days because, I'm not her friend. She wants to talk to her friends, hang out with her friends. So anything that dad says is wrong. Right. So unfortunately, I knew what I was like as a teenager too. So I was probably the same exact way, right? Rebellious. I'm sure I gave my parents hell when I was young. But I mean, it's the same thing I kind of preached to her. I'm like, look, if you want to do something, don't rely on your friends or anybody else to give you the information, because they're not going to do it for you. Go out there and do it. My safe zone where I feel comfortable with is in the library. To be honest, if I could live in the library, I would, because I just love, just opening something up and just gaining knowledge.
But I think of all the time I wasted sitting in Okinawa doing nothing. And now, as crazy as my life is with 3 kids, I'm like,
yeah,
man, did I miss a prime time to just like
Just
step into just go all in on ideas or knowledge.
absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, it was the simplest time in my life. I mean, looking back, like when it was happening, it was
Mhm.
like, oh man, this time sucks. But now, like looking back, like, whew, that was the time to really. I mean, you could do anything you needed to, and you had, like
You
you
had the
mentioned, you had a
time.
paycheck, you had 3 squares a day, you had a roof over your head.
That's it.
I mean, there has never been a larger safety net to do something scary, and all you
Mhm.
got to do is fall back on the net when you're in the military
Exactly.
without a family.
Exactly right. I mean, even now, I mean, even with a family with kids, man, I try to carve out the time to do these things, right? Like I actually had to put it in my calendar. I learned this a while back, right? Um, because there was that issue with like work-life balance, and I was giving too much of my time, or most of my time, to the Marine Corps, in trying to answer commanders' questions and teaching this person or doing this. I spent so much time just involved in my Marine Corps life. It was like 80% Marine Corps, 20% family life, and I was like, something's off balance here, right? So I had to find that good balance. Um, it took me a while to figure that out, I think. But once I did, everything just flourished. I was able to dedicate more time to the kids. I was able to dedicate more time to things I wanted to do, the little side business that I have, the blog, things like that. And I actually carved time into my calendar where I have specific times every night for distraction-free family time, and I figured if it's in my calendar and I get that little ding on my phone, put the phone down, maybe, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. or whatever it is until the kids start going to sleep. Put the phone down, distraction free family time. After they go to sleep, hey, that's game time. That's where I read, write, and study. And then that's where I take my own time to learn what I need to learn to write these little books that I want to write or read about anything that I need to read about, right? That's my time at that point.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. What does life look like after the Marine Corps for you?
uh, that's a good question, man. It's one that I hear from my wife all the time, right? Life after the Marine Corps. So I'm working on a master's degree right now in hopes that I finish it before I get out of the Marine Corps. I know I will. It's a master's degree in project management. So it's kind of in line with what I've been doing at work already, with managing all these different projects. And I just want to make sure that I have that degree in hand so I can just kind of be marketable to the world after the Marine Corps. Right? And there's a program I heard about. I forgot the name of it. It's escaping me right now. But essentially what you do is you go TAD for about 6 months on the back end of your career before, as you're EASing. And you basically intern at some company. And, you don't get paid by them. You get interned, right? You're TAD, so you get paid by the Marine Corps and you learn that skill. And then they have the ability to hire you on at that point. Got a buddy that did that, got hired on by Amazon. So he's doing really well. And he was telling me about it. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like the route I want to go. Not specifically Amazon, but, whatever company out there who, is a good standing company and will, provide good pay and all that. I think, I'm open to anything, really. I'm open to anything. My little side job or my little side hustle is probably not going to cut it, but it really helps that I've made contacts over the years that I'm working. I already got the bachelor's. I'm working on the master's, and I'm working on certifications like on Coursera, things like that are paid for by the Veterans Transition Program. So I think all that stuff helps.
Go ahead and tell us about your side project.
Oh, okay. So it's called Undercover Clip. It's a little business I established, Undercover Clip LLC. So really, it's a little invention I made. It's a little piece of plastic that goes inside your 8-point cover, and it works for Marines and sailors. It holds your eyewear, it holds your ranks in place, and it makes your cover, kind of stand up straight and keeps it looking sharp. Right. I came up with that, established a business back in like 2020, early 2020. And since it has flourished and it has, I got a contract with the Marine Corps Exchange. So they're in the uniform shops right now. They're in the Marine shop in Quantico and a couple other tactical shops across the country. So it was fun to come up with that a little design, and that all stemmed from just being in formation one day over in K-Bay, and I bought a brand new pair of Maui Jim sunglasses. They were like $200 that weekend, and the formation was on Monday. Got in there, I took my sunglasses off, and I'm like, oh, I got nowhere to put them, so I stuck them in my cargo pocket. As the formation ended, I forgot they were in my cargo pocket. You walk up to the front, and you go to congratulate all the new promotees or whatever. So I'm going through my morning, just walking around, and I had like pennies and like a screw in my cargo pocket. It just damaged my new Maui Jams. Man, I was so pissed. I took them out; they were all scratched up, and I figured, that there's got to be a better way to carry these sunglasses. And then I started, the prototyping process, trying to figure out where on the uniform I can carry sunglasses. I tried under the blouse. I tried like inside behind the boot bands and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I don't know where. And then one day it just dawned on me. I had my cover on the table. I'm like, I got to change out this little credit card that I got inside the inside of the cover. So as I was switching it out, I'm like, well, that looks like a good spot. Let's try something there.
Yeah, that's and it's probably one of those that you're like, whoa. Like people, it's like a magic trick.
Light bulb moment, man. That's what it was. And I went to Home Depot that weekend when I thought about it. And I started drawing it out and all that stuff, how I'd like it to look. Went to Home Depot, bought like a little piece of wood, and try to screw some things together and make a prototype. But nothing was really working for me, and then it took me about 6 to 8 months to come up with like the perfect prototype, one that fit all sizes of the covers. And, the rest is history, man. I established the store. I started talking to the headquarters MCCS. I got in contact with them through Kaneohebe's MCX. And, the rest is history, man. They took a chance on me and, gave me a contract, and I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. So now they're in like
sunglasses, like the only accessory Marines are really allowed to wear.
Exactly. Everybody, all Marines wear sunglasses, right? And this thing will carry all sizes of sunglasses, so it's, it just worked out, man. It's something that I'd want to use. Right. And I made it out of necessity because I wanted something. And it just so happens it works out for, thousands of Marines, and thousands of Marines have them in their covers right now. It just really worked cool. out.
Where's the best place besides an MCC or Marine Corps Exchange that they can buy them? Is there a website?
Yeah. So you can go to www.undercoverclip.com. Right now there's a promotion. If you enter MOTO, MOTO at checkout, it gives you free shipping for Moto March, I call it. So yeah, it's just a website. It's and aside from that, it's the Marine shop in Quantico. A couple of tactical shops across the nation as well.
Well, all right, Victor, this episode has been everything that I wanted it to be. If we could gift wrap one thing for the listeners, what is your best piece of dad advice?
As a dad, we're leaders. We're here to set the example for the kids. That we're the heads of our tribes, and kids' minds are like sponges, and they're going to mirror everything that they see. So if you are on the phone all day and you're not paying attention to your family, that's the message that you are sending, that it's normal to be like that. If you're on the couch watching TV all day or just on the video games all day, that's the message that you're sending. And that's what they're going to pick up. And that's what they're going to think is normal. So I think as dads, we need to set the example, and the example for our kids to follow, right? Same as you would with your Marines, soldiers, airmen, whoever it might be. So with that, take your kids outside, take them camping, go out and build something, and, spend some time teaching them how to read or change a tire or whatever, because, building life skills and showing them the way, I guess that's how you lead your family, right? You know the way, you show the way, and you go the way. Does that make sense?
Amen. And like everything you summed up there, like, is why this podcast exists, because military dads have lived a rich life, but we often don't think about gifting that richness to our kids from our experience, our stories, our wisdom, our knowledge. Like, there is only 7% of the population is a veteran. Like, that gives us an edge and our kids an edge that no one else can touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. So, I mean, it's that's what it's all about, man. It's just, being the leader in your family, showing them the way, because that's what they're going to emulate. Same as you in the military have emulated your leaders above you. You are your kids' leaders.
Wholeheartedly agree. Well, Victor, as I said, thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story. I know this episode is going to bring dads home because we spent a lot of time talking about active duty, and there are a lot of active duty dads out there. And so I'm sure a lot of the wisdom that you shared is going to hit a few dads right square in the chest, and hopefully it allows them to make a new change starting tomorrow.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, man. I hope it does.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. This episode, I really hoped resonated with you in a very strong way. I know it did for me, because for me, my big takeaway of this episode was the way that he talked about knowledge and how, as a kid, acquiring knowledge can be the difference in everything. Because no matter what life does to you or how life unfolds, no one can take the knowledge that you've learned away from you. And yet we don't spend enough time helping our kids acquire that knowledge when time is abundant for them, when they don't have all this homework, when they don't have all these papers to do from when they're in high school, middle school. In those early ages, like the story with his son is learning skills and ideas that are going to carry on forever. And you never know how all those threads are going to intertwine into his future life. And to me, we need to spend more time helping our kids acquire knowledge when it's free and easy and they've got abundant of time. And when they're almost drunk on curiosity of learning, they love learning about new things, and teaching them the love of learning early on can extrapolate such a strong love of learning later on. Because the biggest pit most people fall into is they assume once you graduate college that learning ends. I'm a big believer that that's where actually the learning begins. That on the other side of college and whatever you're doing, military transition, that's where your learning begins. And you never should stop reading. You should always be asking better questions, finding people ahead of you. That learning process always continues. So to me, that was my big takeaway. I also want to remind you that if you haven't checked out freedadcourse.com, there is also there a free course, 5 audio lessons on how to have more friends in your life. If you know my story, you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, friendships was the one vehicle that began to help everything change. And through that, everything started to change. I asked better questions. I saw more value. And so this is a free course that I offered other dads, because friends can change everything. So go check it out at freedadcourse.com. 5 lessons, 10 minutes each, super easy, super quick. And you are always one conversation away from changing your life. This could be the one conversation that does that for you. So with that, I'm signing off. I hope that you have an amazing week. I hope that this week is packed with everything that you need. It's got great conversation. It's rich in adventure. It's rich in family time. And it is rich in time for you as well. Let's not forget that it is also important to invest in ourselves and just be with things that make us happy on our own. Signing off. Have a good week. Talk to you guys again on Friday.